Most people take speaking for granted. Reading in front of a class, ordering food, introducing yourself, saying yes, saying no. But when you grow up with a stutter, even the simplest conversations can feel like a challenge. And the hardest part is not the stutter itself, it's knowing exactly what you want to say, but not being able to say it. I grew up with a stutter. Simple things that most people never think about were and are difficult for me, like reading aloud in class, answering questions, asking questions, saying yes or no, even just chatting with my classmates. I don't remember being made fun of at school for it, but at home it was different. So my siblings would laugh whenever I stuttered. And to be honest, sometimes it actually sounded funny. So I laughed with them. I joined them in making fun of myself. As I got older, the stutter did not really improve. One thing that I always hoped for when I was younger was that the teacher would not pick me to read in front of the class. Every time we opened a book, I would quietly pray that my name wouldn't be called. But one day it happened and I was terrified. The teacher asked me to read aloud, and I was so nervous that I couldn't get a word out. I tried, but I just sat there, stuck. Eventually, my classmates, who knew I stutter, of course, told the teacher that I stuttered, and so he asked someone else to read instead. Moments like that stay with you. Over time, you start developing ways to avoid situations that might make you stutter. So, for example, when ordering drinks at a bar, sometimes I would order something I didn't even want. Not because I liked it, but because it was easier to say it at that moment. So if the drink I actually wanted was harder to pronounce in that moment, I would simply avoid it and ask for something else. I would also avoid raising my hand in class even when I knew the answer to a question. Introducing myself has always been difficult, even today. Sometimes saying my own name can be a struggle. The situations that create the most anxiety are always the same. Speaking in public or in groups, talking on the phone, ordering food. A lot of people think that the hardest part of stuttering is when you get stuck on a word. But for me, the hardest part is something else. It's the feeling of not being able to express what you want to say clearly. Sometimes I know exactly what I want to say, the word I want to use, but I change it mid-sentence just to avoid stuttering. Other times, people finish my sentences for me when they see that I'm struggling. And honestly, I don't mind that because it helps the conversation move forward. But deep down, I would still rather finish my own thoughts. When I started learning English, things became even more interesting. Speaking with people online was very difficult in the beginning. I often avoided joining group calls because if I joined, I would have to speak. And if I spoke, I would probably stutter. So sometimes it just felt easier not to join at all. And the most embarrassing moments are when I struggle to say very simple things like my name, basic sentences, or when asking a simple question or just saying yes or no. But even with those difficulties, I didn't give up. Some people think that if you have a stutter, speaking another language might somehow fix it. That wasn't the case for me. I started in English just like I do in my native language, although sometimes English can actually feel a little easier because some words are shorter, but the challenge is still there. In fact, I noticed that my stutter becomes worse when I have to explain something, whether it's simple or complex. If I have to do a presentation in front of a lot of people, my nerves just kick in immediately. I start sweating all over and sometimes words just don't come out. It's happened before, and yes, it was embarrassing. Because of my stutter, I used to avoid applying for jobs that required a lot of speaking. I always prefer roles where communication is minimal. But when I finally landed my dream job as a software developer, I realized something. Developers have meetings all the time, lots of meetings, and that terrified me. The thought of having to speak every day in meetings made me extremely anxious. But slowly, I started getting better at it. I'm still working on it. Today, I still stutter. Speaking is still challenging most of the time. But I've learned something very important. Communication is not about speaking perfectly. It's not about being fluent or sounding smooth. Communication is about connecting with others. It's about sharing your ideas, even if the words come out a little messy. It's okay. So my stutter hasn't disappeared, but it's taught me something valuable: to speak anyway. For most people, speaking is automatic. For me, it never was, and perhaps it never will. But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing, because when speaking doesn't come easily, you learn to value communication in a completely different way. And in the end, the goal isn't to speak perfectly. The goal is to be understood. Thanks for watching.